Snow fell softly over Manhattan, painting the streets in quiet silver. The city lights shimmered beneath the flakes, casting a dreamy glow on the sidewalks. It was Christmas Eve, a night when families gathered around fires, lovers exchanged gifts, and laughter spilled from homes. But high above the twinkling streets, in a glass-walled penthouse overlooking Central Park, a man sat alone. Ethan Cole, the youngest self-made CEO in New York, had everything: power, wealth, and respect. Yet, the silence in his home was deafening. His reflection in the window showed a man who'd conquered the world but lost his way in it. He had no one to share his triumphs with, no one waiting for him by the fireplace, no one to remind him that success meant little without warmth. His assistant had left early to be with family, the housekeeper had gone to her children, and even his phone stayed silent. He poured himself a glass of wine, gazing out at the snowstorm. He'd spent the last few Christmases the same way, alone, pretending he didn't care. But this year felt heavier. Maybe it was the way his parents' house had been sold after they passed. Maybe it was the echo of laughter from across the street. Or maybe it was simply that his heart had grown tired of the emptiness. Just as he leaned back, lost in thought, a sudden knock echoed through his quiet penthouse. 3 soft, uncertain taps. He frowned, setting down his glass. No one visited him unannounced, especially not on Christmas Eve. Another knock followed, gentle but insistent. He walked to the door, hesitating for a second before opening it. Standing there, shivering in the cold, was a young woman. Her cheeks were flushed from the snow, her coat thin, her eyes filled with both apology and desperation. She clutched a small backpack and looked up at him nervously. "I'm so sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "My car broke down just a few blocks away, and my phone died. I tried every building, but no one answered. You're the first one who did. Could I, maybe just wait inside for a bit? Just until the snow slows down?" Ethan studied her, unsure. She looked harmless. Early 20s, exhausted, maybe a college student heading home for Christmas. He could have easily said no. He could have closed the door and returned to his solitude. But something in her eyes, something raw, sincere, made him step aside. "Come in," he said quietly. She entered, brushing snow from her coat. The warmth of the penthouse made her sigh in relief. "Thank you so much," she murmured. "I didn't mean to bother you on Christmas Eve. I just needed somewhere to stay for a moment." Ethan nodded. "You're not bothering me. Do you want something warm to drink?" Her face brightened slightly. "Tea, if it's not too much trouble." As he boiled water, she wandered toward the large windows, looking out at the skyline. "Wow," she whispered. "You live up here." "I do," he replied. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "But it looks lonely." The comment struck him deeper than she knew. "You could say that," he admitted. They sat in silence for a while, sipping tea as the storm raged outside. He learned her name, Clara. She was a music teacher who volunteered at a children's hospital. She'd been driving home from a late shift, trying to make it to her grandmother's house before midnight. "She's the only family I've got," she said. "I promised her I'd be there this year." Ethan listened, feeling something unfamiliar stir inside him, curiosity, maybe even admiration. She spoke with warmth, her words filled with life and love for people who had so little. When he asked why she volunteered on Christmas Eve, she smiled and said, "Because the kids don't get to go home. Someone should be there to sing them carols." He hadn't heard something that pure in years. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The snow thickened, blanketing the city. Clara's laughter filled the empty corners of his home, and for the first time in years, Ethan found himself smiling. She told him stories about the hospital, the little boy who believed Santa visited in dreams, the nurse who baked cookies for everyone, the way music made the sick children forget their pain for a while. "You have a beautiful soul," Ethan said quietly. She looked down, embarrassed. "I just try to make people feel less alone. That's all." Her words echoed through him like a prayer. When the clock struck midnight, Ethan brought out a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "Merry Christmas," he said, raising his glass. "Merry Christmas," she replied, her eyes softening. "You know, I think this might be the most unexpected Christmas I've ever had." He chuckled. "You and me both." The night deepened. Snow fell heavier. The city below seemed to fade into silence. They talked for hours. About dreams, regrets, faith, and everything in between. Ethan found himself opening up, something he hadn't done in years. He told her about his parents, the humble beginnings, the business empire he built, and how success had somehow made him lonelier. "I thought if I achieved enough, it would fill the emptiness," he confessed. "But every time I reached the top, it felt like the mountain just got higher." Clara listened intently. Then she said something he would never forget. "Maybe the mountain isn't meant to be climbed alone." Her simple words shattered something inside him. By dawn, the snow had stopped. The city glistened under pale sunlight, rooftops sparkling like diamonds. Clara stood by the window, her eyes wide with awe. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "It is." When she turned to leave, something inside him panicked. He didn't want her to go. "Clara, wait," he said. "The roads might still be icy. You can stay until later." She smiled sadly. "Thank you, but I promised my grandmother I'd be there. She's waiting." He nodded slowly. "At least let me drive you." They drove in silence through snow-dusted streets. When they reached the little neighborhood outside the city, she pointed to a modest house with a wooden porch and a wreath on the door. "That's her place," she said. Ethan parked the car. Clara turned to him. "Thank you for letting me stay. You didn't have to open your door, but you did. You gave a stranger warmth on Christmas. That's something I'll never forget." He smiled faintly. "You gave me something too." She tilted her head. "What's that?" "Hope." Her eyes softened. "Then we're even." She leaned in, kissed his cheek, and stepped out into the snow. He watched as she ran up the porch steps and disappeared inside. For a long moment, he just sat there, feeling something shift within him. When he finally drove back, the penthouse didn't feel so empty. Her laughter still lingered in the air. Her kindness had filled the place with something that had been missing for years, life. He looked around and realized that maybe he'd been waiting for someone like her, not to complete him, but to remind him what it meant to feel. The next morning, he found himself doing something he hadn't done in years. He called his staff and asked about community projects, charities, children's hospitals. Then he drove to the same hospital Clara had mentioned. The nurses recognized her name instantly. "Clara," one nurse said. "She's been here for years. Brings her guitar, sings for the kids. The children adore her." Ethan smiled. "She told me about this place." The nurse looked confused. "That's sweet of her. She must have really liked you." He chuckled softly. "Maybe." Then the nurse hesitated. "Wait, you said she was here last night." "Yes," he said. "She said she just left her shift before the snow." The nurse's face softened, almost pitying. "Oh, honey, Clara passed away 2 Christmas Eves ago. Car accident on her way to see her grandmother. Every year since, we light a candle in her memory." Ethan froze. The world seemed to blur around him. "That can't be right," he whispered. "I saw her. She was real." The nurse placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Maybe she was. Sometimes love doesn't end where life does." He left the hospital in stunned silence. Snow began to fall again, light and quiet. He looked up at the sky, his breath catching. Somewhere in the distance, faintly, he could have sworn he heard music, a soft voice singing Christmas carols. Clara's voice. Tears filled his eyes, not from sadness, but from something deeper, grace. He understood now. She had come to remind him of the goodness he'd forgotten, the warmth he'd buried beneath ambition. Maybe she had come to finish what she couldn't in life, to heal a lonely soul on Christmas Eve. From that night on, Ethan changed. Every Christmas, he visited the hospital, bringing gifts for the children. He funded new wings for those in need, but he also stayed to read to the kids, to sing with them, to hold their hands. Each year, he lit a candle for Clara. People began to say the once cold CEO had turned into a man with the kindest heart. But Ethan knew the truth. He hadn't changed because of success or fame. He'd changed because, one snowy Christmas Eve, a stranger had knocked on his door, and though she was gone, she had given him everything he'd been waiting for all his life. And every Christmas night, when the snow began to fall, Ethan would look out his window, whispering softly, "Merry Christmas, Clara." Somewhere beyond the lights of the city, a song would rise with the wind, a melody of love, faith, and the beautiful truth that sometimes, the people we're waiting for find their way to us when we need them most.